Like it or not, EVs are coming, and not everybody can afford a Tesla. Not everybody can afford some of these other expensive EVs out there. So we have two choices here that compete directly against each other for your dollar when it comes to moving 4 or 5 people around on nothing but electricity. This, or I should say, this is the 2022 Hyundai Kona Electric Limited. So one of the top of the line versions of this vehicle. Now what's interesting about the Kona is that it shares its platform with internal combustion versions of the Kona. I've actually driven a few of them. They're pretty fun. It's a small crossover, but in this case, it's just front wheel drive, and because it's electric, it has a unique and recently updated front end. And it really does look a lot more like an electric car versus the prior design, which had, honestly, people confused, including myself. So this one, no doubt whatsoever, it's something unique. And you can especially tell because of this. This is where you plug everything in, that's right. And this vehicle is able to be plugged into a regular J1772 and fast charging, that's right. It's got it all. And the best part for a lot of people is the fact that you can actually open this door from the outside without having to use a key fob or trigger anything inside. As long as it's unlocked, kaboom. And this is the 2022 Nissan Leaf Plus. It's the SL model, pretty much the top of the line, but you can add more stuff to it. Now, not a whole lot going on in terms of making a new vehicle or even having any exterior updates with the 2022 model. But just so you know, there technically is 2 different Nissan Leafs. There really are, because there is the lesser brother with the smaller battery that has over 140 miles range, and then there's this one, which has more. Unlike the Kona, you have to use either this button or a key fob button in order to open up your port to plug in. And there we go. Once again, able to plug in to the regular one. This is very much the same as it was in the past with the first Nissan Leaf. And that, of course, is the CHAdeMO, or as I like to say, the Chad Hey Mo. Now guys, I wanted to show you, first of all, this is under here, 150 kilowatt electric motor making 201 horsepower. So it's got some moves. More importantly, this vehicle has a pretty decent range, up to 258 miles. And that's thanks to the 64 kilowatt hour or 356 volt lithium ion polymer battery system. But have you noticed something? Most electric vehicles nowadays, the ones you're hearing about, they don't have anything here. They have the front frunk, and the electric motors are way down there. So this one doesn't have it. And this is one of the problems with having a platform that's shared with internal combustion engines, right? Because that's where that would go. So that is a little bit of a loss for those of you who wanted more cargo space, and we will talk about cargo space with this vehicle in a moment. Bottom line here though is that this unit with its range of 258 miles is competitive, but there is no larger battery available for this setup that gives you more range. Now the Nissan has some differences. For one thing, this hood is kind of heavy. In this case, older platform, because this setup is bespoke. When Nissan built the Leaf, the original one, going back about a decade, they set it up to work in a very similar way to a regular front-wheel drive car. Well, nowadays, as we know, this whole thing isn't needed. But there is the good news. First of all, this power plant puts out 214 horsepower. So it's got a little leg up over the Kona. Also, it's a 62 kilowatt hour battery, which gives you a maximum range of 215 miles. But you do have an option to get a smaller battery for a lot less money. But of course, you're going to lose some range. All right, so a couple of important points. Now, first of all, you do get a charger you can hook up. This one has onboard 6.6 kilowatt capacity. A little bag for it right here. And you notice that it's actually relatively deep in here. And it is a 60-40 split rear seat. And once you fold everything and you remove this thing, you get up to 30 cubic feet of cargo room. That is not as much as the Kona. However, it's very useful cargo room because of how far down it goes, and I'll show you the difference between this and the Kona. It's weird to the eye because it doesn't look it, but this actually has 45.8 cubic feet of cargo space. And what you can really see is once you fold the seats down, it's wide, but not as deep as the Nissan. Another thing that it has, and that's under here, and under here, boom, here's a charger. Now it does have the capacity for 7.2 kilowatts onboard charging. And you have a little extra bit of cargo space back here. You don't really get that in the Nissan. You know what else you don't get in either car? Spare tire. Now, I do have the sticker for both vehicles, and normally I wait until the end of the video to tell you the pricing, but bear with me here. The Nissan Leaf SL Plus, as equipped, the MSRP, this is before destination and all that, is $39,255. Once again, that's $39,255. Now, the base model for the bigger battery version of the Nissan Leaf starts at $32,400. That's the 62 kilowatt hour battery for the range. However, if you don't need the range, you can save yourself a lot of dough because it does have an entry-level model that has a 40 kilowatt hour battery, which gives you a total of 149 miles. That one starts at $27,400. Much less expensive. The Kona, it's a little bit different because there's no base model, so to speak. There's no lesser model. It's just the Kona with the big battery. So the base model version of the Kona with this battery, with this setup, is $34,000. However, this model, as it sits, it's MSRP fully loaded, $44,240. I know a lot of you are like, oh wait, but you get rebates, you get tax and blah, blah, blah. No, guys, before you're thinking about that, it's not cash back to you. It's not cash in your pocket immediately. It depends on the bracket that you're in. So keep that in mind. It seems like Nissan kind of built the Leaf for me. That guy. Big old belly. The flat bottom steering wheel. It helps. What do we have here? We have a vehicle that has tons of headroom, which is something the Kona doesn't have. So on a day-to-day basis, I don't like bouncing my head on the top, and I always lower the seats as low as they'll go, but I don't like to do raking back. I like to sit kind of bolt upright. So in terms of comfort, for me, for my build, this car is superior, and that's a huge thing. I also like these little ports. I got used to them in the old Nissan Leaf. Being able to see out of the front of the side mirror, it's kind of cool. I don't know if it helps all that much, but I think it's kind of cool. Here's what isn't cool. 8-inch screen, look at that. And it's kind of, well, it's not kind of, it is a throwback to the earlier generation of this car. In fact, the entire interior is very similar to the prior generation Nissan Leaf, which some people aren't happy with. I don't really mind it so much. I'm not happy about this screen. The resolution is not the best. It is tiny by comparison, but the rest of the buttons are actually fairly well laid out in terms of heating and cooling and everything else. This is kind of cool too. I do like the fact that this transmission lever, if you want to call it that, gear lever, gear lever, button, it's not a button. I don't like the buttons on the Kia. I actually prefer this, but partially because I'm used to it. But I like being able to, boom, put it into gear and I'm driving, or boom, put it into reverse, I'm driving, boom, park. It's simple, right? So the overall layout of this vehicle is not very complicated. So if you're looking for an all-electric vehicle that doesn't have a lot of complications, or you're like me who's somewhat monosyllabic and just not capable of really thinking out of the box or thinking at all, this isn't such a bad setup. Even this, and I'm going to show you right here, so I just hit the little start button, I'm going to fire it up. There we go. So this screen, it's really not great. It's okay, I would say. If you have an issue with that, you'll definitely notice this. If you don't care, which I don't, then not a big deal. But I'm bringing it up to you guys because some of you might be interested in knowing the fact that the graphics that I'm looking at here are like 10 years old in terms of design. A couple things here. If you hit Eco, it changes the way the vehicle drives so it can preserve some of that battery, won't be as powerful, it won't be quite as sparky off the line. Yeah, I used sparky. And then you have e-pedal, and by triggering this, you will actually get a lot more resistance in the vehicle, allowing for a lot more one-pedal driving. When you let off the pedal, you're going to notice that the brakes kind of clamp down a lot more, slowing you down quicker. That whole sensation has to do with extending the range as well. I apologize for the Ben Folds 5, but I'm not going to apologize for the fact that it has cameras. Yeah. Okay, so the graphics are, once again, not the best. And Nissan did pioneer this 360 view, which I really do like. It does help for parking. And there's more, because you actually have a nice little setup here showing where you're going, obviously in reverse, and forward. But this is interesting. Check this out. This is for the wheel. Huzzah, there is a little bit of space back here. So I'm sitting behind myself pretty much. I am 6'1", especially when I don't slouch. And I have a lot of space, enough to where if I leaned back the seat, I'd still be okay. Unfortunately, my feet don't fit that great underneath, but I mean, for an average size adult, this is more than you need. But there's a problem. First of all, hey, cup holders, yay, that's great. No, it's not. Because, see, this is built to have a third person back here, even a little kid. And having this whole cup holder tray mesh here means their feet are gonna have to go over there or even on top. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they put that there, other than to dissuade you, say, hey, you don't need a third person back here, and using a Jedi mind trick. It's a little different in here. And I've had the same problem with other Konas that I've driven, and I love Konas. But this seat is as far down as I can make it go. And I'm having headroom issues. Actually, if the sunroof wasn't here, I'd probably have to tilt my seat back, which I don't want to do because I like sitting upright. But there's a lot of things I wanted to draw your attention to, including this little pass-through right here, which is actually really good for storage. A little bag, a purse, a man bag, purse, whatever you want to call it. You can put that all in here. A little bit of a tray too. And while the seats aren't my favorite, they're okay. The seating position, this thing is getting in the way of my leg. And that's kind of unfortunate because it kind of pushes it in just a little bit. So what I'm trying to say is that the Nissan is a little bit more comfortable. All right, so fairly easy vehicle to drive, unless you don't read English letters. So park, neutral, drive, reverse. Honestly, I would much rather have something I can position. But, you know, once you get in gear, it doesn't really matter, does it? Then I want to draw your attention down here. Heated and cooled seats. And then you move over, and oh my goodness, drive mode. Now, the drive mode, there's three of them. There's Eco, Normal, and Sport. Now, we move our way up here. This is one of the best layouts I have ever seen in a modern vehicle for heating and air conditioning. Why? Because there's nothing haptic here. It's just buttons and dials. I love it. So you can simply use this stuff. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out air conditioning, fan speed, temperature. I love it. So simple. Please keep that. Then we move up to here. 10.25 inches of goodness. That is a big screen. And it does quite a bit. You can actually go through a lot of settings on this screen. And stuff that happens here can affect the 10.25 inch screen over here. Now, that might look like a very novel, unique, and kind of interesting setup with the gauges, and you're absolutely right. And the cool part, and this is why I love the potential of electric cars, you can change that. Check this out. Now, it takes a moment because you have to be kind of patient, and with my gorilla hands, it takes even longer. But you move your way over here, and there's cluster. Everything is simple to configure once you know your way around. Select theme. Check this out. Now focus over here because I'm going to hit Classic A. Isn't that cool? Classic B. Come on. There it goes. Oh, here we go. Classic C. That's just so cool. And Cube. This is something the Nissan desperately is missing. This modern convenience, this really cool high-tech stuff that is almost intuitive, doesn't take long to figure out. Even an ape like me can figure it out. What a great idea. I just love it. And once again, all of it comes over here. This screen gives you so much control on this vehicle. It's well integrated. Once you figure it out, it's fairly well laid out. I absolutely love this, but you don't have to necessarily use this design, by the way, or a split screen. You can figure that out on your own as well. Once again, you're able to really customize everything. Absolutely love this screen. The steering wheel is a little less complex than the one that's in the Nissan. Basically, all your sound, audio, phone stuff is over here, all your driving aids over here. Then you have these flappy paddles, which actually helps the amount of brake resistance, so you can feed more power back into the battery as you drive along. You can increase and decrease using these paddles. So it's not for performance, it's for adding more juice to your battery. Great stuff. And then you have this compartment over here. Now check this out. There is a wireless charger over here, and it's big, thank you. You see the problem? I already see the problem. Which means if I'm jumping in the back of this, I don't jump, I go slowly. There we go. Yeah. It's interesting. This car has a lot more volume in terms of cargo capacity, and it has technically more room for passengers with that, but you really don't get it in the back seat. It's just like that with the regular Hyundai Kona, right? Not a lot of legroom. Headroom's okay, but the Nissan is way more comfortable for pedestrians in the side who don't want to feel like they have to fold into a yoga position in order to enjoy a seat. Yes, there is a center seat belt here, and yes, much better cup holder placement than the Nissan. That is true. But otherwise, it's not very comfortable. The Nissan, right off the bat, has a really relaxed ride. I'm using the e-pedal, which really does give you one pedal driving. I love that, by the way. I absolutely love e-pedal and all the different forms that are used on all the other competitors that are out there. This car is more comfortable for me in terms of just overall space, and I do like the sight lines a little bit more than the Kia. For those of you who actually have to take your little young'uns and take them from home to school and back, this might be the car. Yes, I have a bias, and I'm completely honest about this. Full transparency, I bought a 2016 Nissan Leaf with the larger 30 kilowatt hour battery. It was the first year they had it available for my daughter, my kid. And it is, in my mind, as a professional, the best car you can get a high school student who doesn't desperately need all-wheel drive or need a V8 or whatever. The whole thing about the Nissan Leaf in general, and electric vehicles, is that maintenance costs are remarkably cheap. And I gotta tell you, after spending a lot of money on various services that have been done to my other cars, it's kind of nice not having to worry about that. I rotate the tires and I put in washer fluid. Those are the main things that I do. That's the same for this car, because this is essentially the same vehicle as the one it replaces. This new 2022 Nissan Leaf is just like the 2016 I mentioned, which is the older generation in terms of its overall feel and in terms of its performance. Yes, it's faster and it gets way more range, but it feels very familiar. And it has this, 214 horsepower. And you get maximum power immediately, or maximum torque. And that's because your engine doesn't have to rev to get to 3,000 RPM, 4,000 RPM, or whatever. It just, boom, does it. There's no need for revving at all. You know, this thing has 201 horsepower, so less horsepower than the Nissan Leaf, right? But man, does this thing tug at the leash. The way it feels is so much more responsive. The Nissan is a little bit more relaxed and kind of built to be a much more friendly pedestrian car, so to speak, a daily thing. This is fun. Fun little car. It handles a lot better than the Nissan, that's for sure. So I'm gonna go around this corner here. So if I were to do that same corner in the Nissan would dive a little bit more and kind of ride the bump. This just takes the corner in a much more sporting, spirited way. I mean, if this is the direction of electric cars in our future, if this is it, this is what we're looking for, then it's not such a bad starting point. I only wish that they had a slightly less expensive version of this car. Just a slightly less expensive version. That would be awesome. As it sits, the Kia Kona electric is the better car. It has better range, it handles a little bit better, has a little bit of a better ride, just a little bit, and the tech is fantastic. However, many of you know that I'm the cheapskate at TFL Studios. I aim for the lesser pricey car. Now I know I already own an older Nissan Leaf, but they're less expensive. If I want less range, $27,000, $28,000, that's not bad. This one you can get in the low 30s, and realistically about $35,000 you can get this car nearly loaded, whereas in this one just kind of gets started. So even though I'm losing some miles, I get a lot more for my dollar. So I'm gonna aim towards the Nissan, acknowledging the fact that this Kia Kona is outstanding. I just wish it had better headroom and legroom. For the Fast Lane Car, this is Nathan. I'll see you next time.